You're listening to the Infinite Banking Mastery Podcast. Did you know that you could build a tax-free pool of wealth that's liquid and accessible all your life while building your retirement nest egg? Gain full control of your financial future and stop relying on the government and banks. The wealthy have already discovered this wealth-building secret. Now it's your turn to get financially secure without following the conventional wisdom that keeps you in debt to banks. Now here's your host, Valerie LaRocque.
Well, hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Infinite Banking Mastery Podcast. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. Today, I wanted to go over a section out of Nelson's book that he calls the grocery store. You might think, why would somebody put a section about a grocery store in a book about infinite banking? But he has good reason. It's a great analogy that he goes through and then uses the whole story of the grocery store to compare to your banking system. So I'm going to go over that analogy today. The point Nelson is trying to get across in this section is how important it is to take the appropriate actions of treating yourself like an honest banker. He paints a very detailed picture of what it's like to own a grocery store, all the work and effort it takes to get it up and running, starting with studying the grocery business. You have to do some research and learn what it's all about. You have to search for a good business location. That's very important. You want people to see your business and know where it's at and be able to easily get there and easily park. That's always a big deal for me when I'm going anywhere. I hope that there's some parking. There's going to be a pretty hefty investment into this new grocery store business. You're going to have to get a large loan or use a lot of resources of your own to get this business up and going. You're going to want to construct a nice building that's attractive to people, that attracts the customers in. You're going to want to design the interior as well to attract people, make the food look good when you're setting it all up. And then once you've gone through all the effort and investment of setting up the business and in a great location, well, now you got to stock the shelves. You got to get the inventory, make sure you're buying the products people want to buy and make sure that the prices are competitive. You'll want to have quality merchandise, of course. And then once your store is all ready to go, all stocked, everything's good, of course, you're going to have employees. I'm sure you'll hire them before that so that they can be stocking the shelves for you and getting things ready. But you're going to have employees to take care of your customers. And that is definitely a large expense. Payrolls are a large expense and the largest expense for many businesses. So up until this point, you would have had to spend a lot of money just to get your business up and running, constructed, built, packed with your inventory filled and prepared and your employees hired. It's going to cost you quite a bit just to get ready to open. I happen to have had a lot of firsthand experience with this, having owned a coffee stand and a restaurant myself in my early 20s. And it certainly is a lot of work just to get the doors open. My coffee business was a new stand. I actually purchased a stand and then relocated it across the street. And so I had to build the structure. Well, I didn't build it with my own two hands, but I did have to hire a contractor to build the building. And I went ahead and had to dig for water, had to dig for sewer, had to dig for power. I had to hire a company to dig 15 feet into the ground for the sewer and water lines to be set up, which was quite ridiculous. I'll just say as a side note, apparently to run a blender to make some mixed drinks that qualified me as a restaurant. And so I had to have running water, 5 sinks and a bathroom to blend some coffee drinks. So anyway, lots of stories with that whole thing and lots of crazy stories with the health department. It was a lot of work. Quite small as compared to a grocery store and setting all of that up, just figuring out everything that had to be done, all the permits that I needed, all the departments I needed to speak to, business plan I had to create. And again, I'll just mention again, the health department, they were really something else to work with, I gotta say. They were just something else. So I can only imagine dealing with the health department when constructing a grocery store. No fun, I'm sure. And having employees, that's definitely another challenge in and of itself, especially when you have a really small business, only a few employees that you need to be there every day or their scheduled shift and if they have to call in for one reason or another, whether they're sick or pretending they're sick. Having a business is just a huge time commitment and a huge investment. A lot of times I worked 7 days a week. At least the first few years, I worked 7 days a week in my businesses, and a lot of times 12 hours a day. Just work, work, work is what I was doing. Though I did enjoy relationships built with people in my community that would come and were my customers. I did build many friendships. And, it was a season in my life that I don't regret. I did enjoy owning my own businesses. It just was very tiring at times. And so, why would anybody want to go through all this work, all this expense, and all this headache of starting up a business with all the effort and investment involved? Well, of course, because they are hoping and planning and expecting to create cash flow from their business. And then, of course, they hope to sell it down the road for a profit and help to fund their retirement as well. But the main purpose, usually people are looking to right away, is cash flow. They want to create a business, they're willing to put the investment in because they're going to make a profit on that and it's going to earn them a nice living. Now, you can actually compare those startup costs of starting a business to the startup costs of a whole life policy, because when you start a whole life policy and you start implementing the infinite banking concept, you will realize that your first year of funding, you're not going to have access to every single dollar that you put into the contract. And the amount that you don't have access to is what we call the startup cost of your banking system. Just like any business or this restaurant example, the grocery store example, there are startup costs to get your business up and running, or in this case, your banking system. And why is it okay? It's okay not to have access to all that money right up front because you know that your system will become cash flowing, just as you expect your business, if you were opening a business, to become cash flowing. You expect your whole life policy to become cash flowing, and it will down the road. And so those startup costs are very minimal as compared to what that policy will do for you down the road. Now getting back to Nelson Nash's grocery store example, he describes how you have to be able to turn your inventory enough times per year to be able to make a living. Many of you may not be aware that the markup on groceries is actually pretty small, so you have to turn a lot of the product to be able to make a profit, because the wholesale cost for the grocery store is not that much less than the retail cost that they are charging you. The example that he uses in the book is that a can of peas was to cost 57 cents wholesale, and that's what the grocery store would buy them for. And then they would be able to turn around and sell that can of peas for 60 cents. So grocery stores need to turn a lot of inventory on a product to make a profit. And so what does turning mean? Turning means that they bought this can of peas for 57 cents, and because they have the can of peas on inventory at their store, they are going to sell it for 60 cents. And when they receive that 60 cents, they're able to use 57 of those cents to go buy another can of peas. So the grocery store then would have to turn that can of peas many times just to break even, because you have to consider, of course, all the expense that went into it, the building, the interest due on the loan, advertising, the payroll, all your utilities, the signage, employees, legal fees. There's so many things that go into it besides just the cost of the can of peas you're selling. I plan to break this concept down some more in a future podcast, maybe the next podcast, to paint a more clear picture of how this example of turning the inventory relates to banks and how they are telling us to do the exact opposite of what they are actually doing. So then Nelson goes into talking about how once you have your grocery store up and running, it's very hard and it's very tempting when you have a grocery store for you to go out the back door with your groceries instead of the front door, meaning you load up your cart and just take it without paying for it, without going through and ringing up your groceries and paying for it. Owners will think, well, I own this place and I can do whatever I want. I can take the groceries. And certainly when you have a little coffee stand or restaurant, you're like, oh, I can make myself a coffee. I don't need to ring myself up for it. But he's saying, this is a very bad idea. It is a big mistake for owners to just decide, hey, I own the place, I'm just going to take it and go. They're actually lessening the value of their business long term rather than building that value by paying for your own purchases or groceries or whatever it is, the business that you have. It will actually build the value of your business when you do want to sell it long term. And not only that, but your employees will see you walking out the back door with your groceries, and then they'll want to do the same. They'll say, oh, well, they're taking stuff home and they're not paying for it. And I work here and I should be able to have a discount or free. I should be able to take some stuff for free because I work here and should be an employee perk. If you're doing it, your employees are going to easily start doing it. And then you'd have to turn the inventory many more times to make up for the items that weren't paid for. Nelson goes on to say that another reason owners may have this temptation to basically steal from themselves is because they feel that if they treat themselves like a regular customer and pay for the groceries, that their businesses will have more sales. And what does that mean? That means that you're going to have to pay more tax. And so they think, oh, well, I'm also saving in tax by not increasing my sales. And then he says, what if there's a situation where the profits from the sale of your groceries were not taxed? Then that would eliminate you trying to cheat the system or cheat yourself by going out the back door, because at least you don't have to pay taxes on the groceries. Now, I know in some states groceries are tax-free, but that's just the storyline that he's saying in his example. Well, then that would eliminate one of the incentives for trying to sneak out the back door with the groceries, but you still have to overcome the urge to just take that from yourself. And then Nelson says, what if you were to charge the patrons, who are your close family and relatives, more money than you did other customers? You might charge most customers 60 cents. Maybe you charge your close family 62 cents for a can of peas. This extra money would go towards buying more peas to be able to sell to more customers. And so by taking this action, your business would become more profitable. Now, in teaching this story to his own clients or to advisors that when we would learn from him, Nelson, he would often say, don't steal the peas. And he's referring to this story and also relaying it to infinite banking by saying, you don't want to steal from yourself. You want to charge yourself interest and pay yourself back with interest. And then he's comparing that as well to if you had those close relatives or patrons where you were charging more, your family, if you have a banking system, then you can charge your family a little bit more than what you need to charge them for interest to take loans. So if the insurance company is charging a certain thing, he's saying charge yourself a little bit more, and you're going to end up with a more profitable business or a larger banking system. So if the insurance company is charging a certain rate, he's saying charge yourself a little bit more. And this is one way, this is how you're going to grow your banking system, have a more successful banking system, build your banking system by paying yourself more than what the insurance company is requiring of you. And this is one way to grow your system, grow your pool of cash from which to finance things in your future all along the way in retirement, is by treating yourself not like only an honest banker or an honest business owner, but charging yourself even a little bit more than that, because you are captive. Your family is captive, that those people are not going in somewhere else to access anybody else's whole life policy. They're going to access yours. Your family is going to be using that policy for the things that they want to do and finance in their lives, especially you. So charging yourself more, you're just going to end up cycling more money to yourself, hopefully in the long run, putting more money in as premium. And that is what's going to grow your system in the long run. Well, I hope you were able to follow the breakdown of the grocery store story and the lessons in this section. If it's something you were following along with and you'd like to understand better and you'd like to partner and work together, then please reach out. You can reach me at Valerie@alphaomegawealth.com. I would be happy to go over it further, explain it, make sure you understand the lessons that Nelson was trying to teach in this section, and I'd be happy to help you further. I hope that you enjoyed. I hope that you have a great week. I will talk to you next time. Take care.
This is thepodcastfactory.com.